Hi, and welcome back to On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. I'm Danielle Underwood, your host. Today, Jean Gowden, KFL's Director of Government Relations and leader of our legislative advocacy efforts, joins me back in the studio for a session wrap-up and recap. Welcome back, Jean.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so wow, what a session we just lived through. You have so much to share with us today. And I thought I would ask you as a first question, what 3 words would you use to describe this unique legislative session?
Oh, good question. I think, first of all, compact, because it was a very condensed session. We got a lot done in 90 calendar days, so that was incredible. It was frenzied at times, just due to the fact that things were being hurried up a little bit due to the calendar. And finally, I have to say it was a successful session.
Those are 3 awesome words. And why don't you put that into perspective for people who are less aware of a typical legislative session and how long that typically goes. What is it usually like? I mean, how is this so different from previous sessions?
Well, it was 90 calendar days. Generally, what they'll do is they'll complete the regular session usually about the second week of April or so. And then the legislators will have a couple weeks off and come back at the end of April for the veto session. But this year, everything got finished. The actual end of veto session was on Friday, the 11th of April. So it was finished before usually the veto session even starts. And so it was quite condensed, but we got a lot done. And actually, I like it because it did force us to get all of the things we needed to do done, meet with the legislators, get hearings scheduled, all of those things. We were on a time crunch. And so we had to get it done, and praise God we did.
Yes. So for all of you who are listening, what this meant was we were getting pretty much daily updates from Jean. There were things constantly happening. And because we had this large legislative agenda, we had all these different items that Jean was working on and our team was working on. And so we constantly had to stay in contact with you just to know what's happening now, what's moving forward, where are we at in different stages. So I know that maybe that doesn't seem that germane to a lot of Kansans to what they might be interested in terms of timing. But for us, wow, it really affected our day-to-day work at KFL.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for cell phones and texting
Yeah.
and things, because it was very easy to just put together a text and send it out to everybody that needed to know what was happening with a bill, what was happening with a hearing, votes, all those types of things.
Yeah. And then, of course, we were pulling in Mackenzie to work on social media with us, who many of you know about because she was with us when we just announced this agenda at the beginning of the session. So we were working on all these different sides to let Kansans know what was happening, letting the pro-life movement be part of that action. So it was super exciting, and what so many victories. It's really kind of mind-blowing what happened. So how are you feeling now that everything is done?
Well, I feel like I can breathe now.
Yeah.
So relief, I'm a tremendous amount of relief, because when we first propose the agenda, when we first start working to get the bills introduced, it's scary because you have no idea what's going to happen in just 3 short months. And so now to be on the other side of that, it's exciting because, hey, we were able to get a lot done for a number of reasons. Obviously, because of the great team we have at Kansans for Life and our wonderful supporters. And so, just tremendous amount of relief. But of course, looking forward to the future. We a lot of things still left that we can do, and looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's a great point. We will definitely circle back to that. So just a few months ago, at the beginning of this session, listeners did hear from us about our aggressive legislative agenda. And I thought maybe we should talk just quickly about the big idea behind those goals, because I think some people were a little surprised when they saw some of those items that we had on our agenda, but they all made perfect sense when you put them into the larger context. And also some of those things we had literally been working on for more than a decade, and people, maybe there was less awareness about them, but so many things that we wanted to move forward. So just for like the big idea behind our goals for this session, how would you kind of unify all of those for us?
Well, the goals this session were to once again continue to support women who want to have their babies. And we did that a number of ways. Obviously, in the past, we've worked very, very hard and very closely with pregnancy resource centers, maternity homes, to make sure that they are able to offer services to women in need and their families. And so that was one of our goals this year, was to continue the funding from the state, for example, for the pregnancy resource centers, but also to hopefully increase that. And we also wanted to increase awareness of the pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes that are out there, willing and able to help women. But we also want to include some of other vulnerable populations that maybe we haven't always focused on, like the preborn child. And so we were involved in making sure that all means all, and that every life matters. Including those Kansans who are living with disabilities and families that are dealing with diagnosis of children who maybe have an intellectual or developmental disability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really part of that pro-life principle that we live by is that we are speaking up for all vulnerable lives. Every human life, it has value and dignity and is perfect just the way God created that person. And so we certainly do. We stand up for every human and making sure that that they're not forgotten, in our discussions, and not discriminated against too, that they have human rights that have value and dignity. So we will talk then about the specifics, because we did come out, like I mentioned, with that lengthy legislative agenda. And I know when we first talked about it, even before on the podcast, we were just kind of in awe of, wow, we're going to try to actually accomplish all of this session. And at first I thought it was kind of crazy. And I also knew, just from the look on your face, you realized how much work was ahead for you. So let's talk then about the specifics of that, because really we achieved, through the grace of God and the help of so many people in the pro-life movement, almost every one of those goals. So let's talk specifically about those. You brought up the pregnancy resource centers already, the funding for them and for the maternity homes. So the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Act. Why don't you walk us through that battle and what we ended up achieving?
Well, we wanted to continue the funding for that. It's a program, the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Act is a program that is, the money is distributed from the state by the state treasurer's office. It goes to the Kansas Pregnancy Care Network, KPCN, and they distribute the funds to pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes. And so what we wanted to do, since this is something that has to be funded every year, we wanted to see if we could increase the amount that they get. They've been getting the last 2 years $2 million, which is tremendous just to be able to have that that support from the state. But there's so much more that these organizations could do to help women if they did have more funding. So we worked with House and Senate members to be able to come up with a number that they would be able to agree on to be able to give the funding to the pregnancy resource centers. And that total was $3 million. So it was a $1 million increase, which may not seem like a lot to folks, but this was a session where government agencies were all being told to cut their budgets. And so to be able to see an increase of $1 million for the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Act was really something. So we were thrilled with that, but it was a battle. We had to get that through both chambers, and of course, fighting against the abortion industry allies who like to lie about pregnancy resource centers and claim that they're fake clinics, when really what they are is tremendous social service organizations offering help to women, material needs, relationship needs, education, all kinds of things, and at no cost to the woman. So we had to fight for that. And then, of course, the governor vetoed the budget item and of that $3 million. She vetoed it. And so we had to work with legislators to get that overridden, which, of course, we were very grateful to have that happen. So that was the battle.
That translates into a 50% increase in the funding that was available for them.
That's right.
And again, if listeners, you may have already heard this podcast. If not, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to the episode that we had Ron and Donna Kelsey come on of Kansas City Pregnancy Clinic, and they explained the huge difference this program has made in the amount of resources they're able to provide to women, the expansion efforts that they've been able to do, even opening a new location, new services, new bilingual supports, so many things that they've been able to do because of that Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Act and the funds that are directed to the women through them and those direct services. So highly recommend going back and listening to that, because what that means is that all the good work that has been happening will now be able to happen at an even larger scale for more pregnancy centers to be able to participate. So very exciting win. Congratulations on that. It is so fantastic. And thank you to everyone who participated, and let your legislators know how important that was for us to continue to fund that. So the next thing I thought we could talk about was, we already talked briefly about the supports to families that receive a prenatal or postnatal diagnosis of Down syndrome or another related chromosomal condition. That's such an interesting story. And again, we had another podcast on that where we had Sarah Hart-Weir come in and explain some of the details about that, the background to it. And I know you know a different side of it because you've been working on this for quite a while. So why don't you kind of bring us up to speed on what is now going to be happening in Kansas because of that effort?
This is so very exciting because it's been 12 years since that program was first put into statute, became a law in Kansas, and then it was actually now going to be implemented. So a long fight, but back in 2013.
I'm going to stop you for a second because that might be confusing for people. How can that be that something gets put into statute and then it just kind of lingers out there and nothing happens? Tell us why.
Well, that's because words matter. And unfortunately, why this is a really great idea that was put into statute back in 2013, it gave the program, the authority over the program, which is Prenatal and Postnatal Diagnosed Conditions Awareness Program. That was given to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment to oversee, to authorize, and implement. But sadly, the language in the bill said that the KDHE may do this. And so, of course, if there is not a will to do this in that particular agency, it's not going to happen. So the first thing we thought about doing this year was like, we really need to get that enacted. So let's change may to shall, meaning they shall do this. It has to be done. And then, of course, we thought, well, where can this program be put so that it does get implemented and in a way that whoever takes it over has expertise in the area of working with families who are given a diagnosis of Down syndrome or another chromosomal condition. And so this was in working with Sarah Hart-Weir, who is the executive director of the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities. Her idea was like, hey, we can take that over. So KCDD was more than happy to be able to have the authority to take over the program and to implement it. And so that's what we did with this bill, was to say this is going to be transferred to the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities from the KDHE. And so this organization now is responsible for training medical providers who deliver a diagnosis of Down syndrome or other chromosomal conditions to families so that they can deliver that diagnosis in a caring and compassionate way, but also give families hope by telling them what are some of the expected outcomes for the particular condition that their child has. Also to connect these families with other organizations that can offer support and information so that they can raise their children.
Yes.
And so it's a wonderful program, and I'm so excited after all these years to see that the KCDD can implement this in the way that it was intended.
So much, yes. And I think we know, too, from hearing from Rachel Campos-Duffy recently, who has a daughter, her daughter Valentina, who has Down syndrome. And she really helped bring it home how important that is for a family that's receiving a diagnosis, a prenatal diagnosis like that, to have support at that moment so that they don't feel pressured to abort that baby. And, she explained that that so many, I think she said between 70 and 85% of babies with that prenatal diagnosis are aborted. And that's because they feel like they have no support from the community, how essential that is to link them with other families and with those supports. So super exciting, awesome progress. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So next we want to bring up another disability-related item, and that was the strengthening of protections for individuals with disabilities who might otherwise be threatened with the withholding of food, water, or life-saving care, really towards an end-of-life situation or in a high medical needs situation, and protecting them from that scenario so that their life isn't given less value than another life. Why don't you talk us through that one?
Well, and this was something that Kansans for Life had been working with the disability rights community for decades to try to enact. We were dealing with the guardianship and conservatorship statutes or laws in the state of Kansas. And about 20 years ago, those statutes, they were looking at trying to kind of revamp those. And so at that time, we said, there's some very troubling language when it comes to some of the end-of-life provisions for people with disabilities. And so we tried to get legislation passed that would protect those folks from having, as you said, food and water, or even life-sustaining medical care, such as dialysis, some of those things withdrawn. And so, unfortunately, we weren't able to get that done. But earlier, actually, it was towards the end of last year, once again, there was the indication that the legislature was going to revamp the guardianship statutes. And so we worked with the disability rights organizations, other pro-life organizations as well, to get some language that would be protective for these folks, and worked through the process, got that, had hearings in both the House and Senate, and the protective language was added into the bill and passed with strong bipartisan support in the House, but actually unanimously in the Senate. So very, very exciting now to see those protections in place for those folks living with disabilities who may not have a worthy guardian to look after them.
Yes, that's a good point. And again, the most vulnerable among us. And that's such an essential piece of the pro-life movement. And what we do is speaking up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So then let's talk about the education bill. This one I think is super exciting for me personally, I've heard from so many friends who were thrilled about this bill getting through, thanks to your work and the work of others, some friends and allies and members of the pro-life movement who, again, spoke to their legislators and encouraged them on toward this. So talk to us about this bill. This one is so fun.
Well, to me, it's culture changing because what this bill does is to require that in the public schools, whenever there is a course on human development, human biology, or even human sexuality, when there is one of those courses taking place, that as part of the presentation there will be either computer animated or actual ultrasound video of the development of the unborn child. That will be part of the presentation shown to these kids. And so it's so exciting because it's science. We're not talking about promoting any kind of ideology here, which is, of course, what a lot of people have been pushing for decades in the public schools, is their particular slanted ideology. This is just pure science, and the kids are going to be able to see this. These children may grow up to be parents someday, or even deliver babies as doctors or midwives. And so it's so critical for them to have that information. And it doesn't mandate when this is done. It's just whenever the local school boards determine what's appropriate for these kids at a particular age and in a particular course. But it's great because there's a number of wonderful ultrasound videos out on the web and YouTube. And the particular one that we recommended, we didn't make it part of the bill because we wanted to leave that up to the local school boards. But one that we actually were able to show in one of the committees that we testified in front of, we were able to show one. It's a wonderful 6-minute video, an ultrasound with also some animation in it. From Endowment for Human Development. They have a series of just dozens of ultrasound videos, and those actually have been linked on the Kansas Department of Health and Environment's Women's Right to Know website for a decade and a half. So the KDHE itself has really the fact that they have had this linked on their website for so long really indicates that they are scientifically accurate. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to show that part of that video to the senators in a hearing, and they were just amazed by seeing the ultrasound videos of the unborn child and its development. Now, you may be wondering who could possibly be opposed to this because it's science. And as a matter of fact, Kansans for Life, the people that we had testify in support of this bill were scientists with PhDs who had taught for decades embryology, human development to not only college students, but pre-med students as well. And so we also had a wonderful OBGYN testify in support of the bill because she has had the privilege of walking with families who are expecting, and for them to meet their child the very first time on an ultrasound is just so exciting. She even said that one time she almost had to catch a father from falling over because he was so in awe of seeing his child for the first time on the ultrasound.
It really is miraculous. I mean,
it is.
To be able to have that insight into what's happening as that baby is developing in the womb is just amazing.
Absolutely. And it's science.
What could be better learning for these students to have?
So it's science. So I was just floored when the abortion facilities came out against these bills. And you think, why on earth would an abortion facility care about students seeing how we all started, our common human beginning in the womb? And it's because it talks about science of life before birth.
Yep.
Which they don't believe exists. Second of all, they want to continue to be able to tell these young girls who may get pregnant, they want to continue to tell them that it's just a clump of cells, a blob of tissue. They don't want these kids to know the truth about the value and the worth and the humanity of the unborn child.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that they found it, just what a tell.
Absolutely.
It really is. It's sad how that's one of their main goals is to mislead young people into believing those things. So this science, pure science, will be such a benefit to the students who are going to be entering school next year and have that opportunity to get to see this, to learn it. Some of them may end up so excited by seeing that they may become our future OBGYNs. We shall see. Or other, like you're saying, embryologists, or wow, so many different things they could do to help the world. Well, did we cover everything?
I think we need to talk about child support.
Oh, yes, we do.
I skipped around, so I know. Yes, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So one thing that we had tried to get past last year was child support from conception. And I'll explain that a little bit. But yeah, last year, sadly, it did pass, but we were not able to get a veto override on that. It just ran out of time. But this year, it was just an amazing story how this happened. Once again, it was proposed, and Kansans for Life supported that a woman who is obviously maybe in a financial situation that's not great, or a relationship status that's not good either, and she's petitioning the court for child support from the father, that the court should be able to look at the the pregnancy, direct pregnancy related medical costs for the mom, from conception on. So that the woman could get reimbursed for those costs from the father. And so we're real excited about trying to get that done. And so what happened then, of course, it went to the Senate, and an amendment was added on the floor of the Senate to add a tax exemption for an unborn child. So that was like, hey, this is great. Another something that we would love to see, to be able to lessen the financial burden on families with children. So that was great. That passed the Senate. The House wanted to take a little look at that, and so it was sent to a conference committee, which is if a bill is changed and both sides don't agree, we want to get it to conference committee and kind of discuss the language and see if we can come to an agreement. So what happened then is in the conference committee that, of course, the child support from conception was kept in there, but also they did do a little tweaking of the tax exemption for the unborn child so that it would make it a little easier for families to be able to claim that. So now when a child is born, the parents can get not only the tax exemption for having a born child, or also a stillborn too, that is a situation that can happen, but also that they can get a double tax exemption for that 1 year where that child was unborn. So it recognizes that these unborn children have value to their families. And so that was great. We were able to do that. But so it was a great bill, and really excited that got passed. Now, of course, that was one, like last year, another bill that the governor vetoed. She vetoed 3 of our bills this year. The line item veto on the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Act funding. She also vetoed the fetal development video bill for schools, and then she vetoed the child support. But praise God, because the wonderful pro-lifers in the state of Kansas gave us stronger supermajorities this last election in both chambers, we were able to override all 3 of those vetoes. So great year for that.
Yeah.
Plus, I just have to say, too, that we were pleasantly surprised when the governor actually signed 2 of our bills. And those would be the bill that put in the protections for those folks with disabilities, and to protect them from harm at the end of life, and also the bill for the Prenatal Postnatal Diagnosed Conditions Awareness Act, which I have to add. Also, I think this is the first time that this has ever happened, that anything of substantive in the pro-life movement, legislative-wise, actually cleared both chambers unanimously. There was absolutely 100% support for that bill in both chambers.
I think we cannot underestimate that. That is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's really exciting.
And when we look back to, if we're looking in the rearview mirror, I guess we probably could have foreseen that this was going to be an amazing, historic legislative session. When we look just back at the March for Life, the incredible turnout of pro-life members of the movement from across the state poured into Topeka, and just that groundswell of support. And I think you could feel the electricity in the air that day, I think. And the legislators, I think, could feel it too. So what a great way that they were launched into the session, just having that energy behind them and having the numbers to be able to stand together and just to get so much accomplished to support those women, the families, to protect the vulnerable who have disabilities, just so many things that we were able, and the money for the pregnancy centers, which of course does all of the great work that they do. So all those wins, and wow. Congratulations again. And
it was a team effort.
Yes. Congratulations to the whole pro-life movement.
Absolutely.
Really. And we owe you a great deal of gratitude. And you just so eloquently explain each of these, legislation is complex. It's like you said, every word matters in these pieces, these bills that go forward, and what ends up in statute. Words really do matter. So, just thank you for your attention to every little precise detail and, every twist and turn. And it was an exciting ride for all of us. And we're just so grateful.
It was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I'm still taking it all in.
Oh. Well, you are amazing, and we're grateful to have you. And we also want to congratulate you because you have some congratulations due to you. So for anyone who doesn't know yet, we haven't really been able to share this out yet, but we will be doing that more. So Jean was included in the inaugural edition of State Affairs Power 50 Report, which is a listing of the most influential Kansans who shaped the landscape of Kansas now and in the future. And I just want to say you landed at spot 41 on this list. You were above, you beat out 2 large city mayors for influence.
Wow.
So
Just wow.
yeah, it was fun to read that and just so well deserved.
Well, thank you. It's because I represent Kansans for Life, and all of our members, all the pro-lifers in the state of Kansas, and we are powerful because we are. We're spreading the truth.
Yep.
We're protecting life at all different stages, and so we are.
And we're about unity. We're about alliances. We're about working with friends. And
Absolutely.
we like to make friends and pull in as many different people as we can. And I think that goes a long way. We want to be bridge builders.
Exactly.
So yes, and you all who are listening, you are part of this movement. Just to make it crystal clear, none of this could happen without you and your action in the midst of this. Just if you were at that March for Life, if you contributed to the energy of that day, you were holding a sign, you were chanting, you were whatever you were doing that day, if you forwarded a podcast to someone, if you sent in an action alert, if you contacted a legislator, if you sent in a donation to keep everything moving, you made a difference. And so we are very grateful to you. Anything else you want to say about anything specific that the members of the pro-life movement did to contribute here? Did we cover it all?
Oh, well, I think I just really want to remind folks again how critical it is that you respond to our action alerts. It made a tremendous difference in a lot of the bills because sometimes legislators are a little hesitant to push something forward, to really get out there, and hearing from their constituents makes a tremendous difference. So a lot of times during the legislative session, people are thinking they're overwhelmed, they're nervous about having another hearing on a different bill. And being able to go to them and say, our people really care about this. They're engaged. This is critically important. Or when it comes time to deciding if the bill is going to die or not, it's like, no, we have to keep this going because the pro-lifers in Kansas want this legislation. They support it. And they're contacting their legislators to let them know. So critical.
And we heard from you all who sent us emails and told us that we had made it really easy for you to do that, for you to participate. So we're going to continue doing that in the future. And if you're not on our list to receive those, then you want to be because there were more battles ahead. So you're going to want to go to kfl.org and just go ahead and sign up and be part of this movement in that way. It is such an important piece of this whole effort is really tied into that. So, thank you, Jean, for coming in here today, and thank
Pleasure.
you for. It's always I love doing the launch of the legislative session, and then I love doing the wrap up, and mostly that's because we've had so much celebration happening, so much winning. It's fantastic.
Yes, I'm not tired of winning.
Not tired. Not tired. Oh, and thanks to all of you who are listening. Before you go, I need to ask a quick favor. Whichever platform you're watching or listening on today, can you please hit that like button or give us a 5-star review? That will help boost us in that search engine algorithm so that more people can see this podcast or hear this podcast. If you're feeling extra generous, you could take a quick minute to leave us a comment. We love to hear from you. We love to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and do that. Let us know what you think, and we will make sure to read everything that you leave us. Lastly, remember your purchase of Pro-Life Coffee from 7 Weeks Coffee helps to support our work, and you can reach that through our website at kfl.org. Or if you just want to give us a pat on the back for a job well done in Topeka this session, thank you, Jean, then you can find the donate button on our website as well. However you choose to be part of this growing movement, we are grateful to you. So until next time, never forget, the pro-life movement is on the right side of history. Stay strong. The truth will overcome. Thanks, friends, and we will see you soon.